All right, very good. Welcome, everyone. I want to call this meeting to order. It's October the 23rd, and this is our monthly board meeting of the directors of the West Basin Water District. And so welcome to everybody here and at home. And with that, let's determine if we have a quorum. Mr. Caldwell.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. I'll begin by calling roll call. Director Don Deere. Here. Director Gloria Gray.
Here.
Director Harold Williams. Here. Director Desi Alvarez.
Here.
President Scott Houston.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Very well. 4 of us are in person and 1 is calling in. We are here. Let's see, the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would like to ask former Councilwoman from the City of Hawthorne, Olivia Valentine, if you'd be so kind to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's see, Mr. Caldwell, do we have any public comment today?
Mr. President, we have not received any requests for public comment with one exception. You might recall that at the Engineering and Operations Committee, we did have 2 people request an opportunity to speak. One of those gentlemen, Mr. Tom Poshman from Sinor Water America, is in attendance. Though he did not request for public comment, he did let us know that he was available if the board members had any questions on that related item. That being said, there are members of the public that are joining us today. If there's anybody that wishes to make public comment, both in person and or virtually, please let us know now. And Mr. President, I do not see any request for public comment.
Very good, thank you. Let's see, presentations, we have no presentations.
That's correct.
I just want to make an announcement for 1 second. We have a number, I'm just going to put it out now and we'll give more detail later. We have a number of adjournments today that I want to recognize at the end of the meeting. And I'll just name the names so everyone kind of knows, and we'll say something more at the end. But number 1, of course, is Senator Diane Feinstein, who passed away since our last meeting. And it was my intent to say something about that in this meeting, which I will later, but also even over the past weekend, there were 2 people in my area that have passed away. So one was Cynthia Montanez, who was the CEO of Tree People, a former assembly member, a former council member from the city of San Fernando. She passed away. Another lady, Donna Sarr, from the city of West Hollywood, who was very active in that community, and also Ray Waters from the city of Hermosa Beach, who many of us knew through a lot of the different clubs and organizations. So Ray Waters passed away this past weekend as well. So I definitely want to adjourn in honor of those 4 individuals. And then, of course, if my colleagues have anyone, let me know before the end of the meeting. We'll make sure we do that properly.
I'll let you know.
Thank you, sir. With that, any items too late to the agenda?
Staff has no items for this particular item.
Okay, very good. Consent calendar, we have 7, A through D as in dog. Unless there's some polls, does anyone have something to poll? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve these.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar in its entirety.
Okay. Second,
Second.
motion and a second. All right, any further discussion on that? All right, with that, we'll go ahead and call for the vote.
EJ. So, Director Don Deere,
Yes.
Director Gloria Gray,
Yes.
Director Harold Williams,
Yes.
Director Desi Alvarez,
Yes, but I'd like to register a no on C.
President Scott Houston.
Yes. Okay, very good. Thank you, EJ. Item 8A is our action calendar. approve sponsorship of fiscal year 23-24 community outreach events. Looks like there are two, so if you could just run through both at one time, that'd be great.
Happy to do that, Mr. President. This item will be presented by Hazel Vasquez, our Deputy Board Secretary.
Good afternoon, President Houston, members of the board. I can turn your attention to packet page 95, where item 8A begins. And as mentioned, I do have two items for your consideration today. The first is a request from Director Houston for the board to consider sponsorship of the Wiseburn Education Foundation's Neon Nights event that is scheduled to be held on Saturday, November 4th, 2023. Director Houston would like for the board to consider a $500 sponsorship, and that would grant West Basin an advertisement promoting district awareness. I did want to note that West Basin has not previously sponsored this event, but for more information regarding this, you can turn to attachment A that begins on packet page 97. The next item for your consideration is also a request from Director Houston. He requests consideration for the board to sponsor the Exchange Club of Culver City's Tribute to Heroes event, and that is scheduled for Saturday, November 11, 2023. Director Houston would like the board to consider a $500 sponsorship, and that would grant West Basin a speaking opportunity for a district representative and an advertisement promoting district awareness. The district has not previously sponsored this event either. For additional information, you can find that in attachment B, and that's on packet page 101. And now turning your attention to page 96, just to discuss the fiscal impact of this. As you know, funds for the sponsorship of community outreach events are included in the fiscal year 23-24 community outreach budget in a total amount of $75,000. Approval of the two sponsorships and the proposed or requested amounts of $500 or each would leave a remaining budget in that budget of $36,700. So with that, I'd like to read the recommendation. Director Houston requests that the board consider approving sponsorship of one, the Wiseburn Education Foundation's Neon Nights event, scheduled to be held on Saturday, November 4, 2023, in the amount of $500, and two, the Exchange Club of Culver City's Tribute to Heroes event, scheduled to be held on Saturday, November 11, 2023, in the amount of $500. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Hazel. Any questions or a motion? Questions? Hearing none. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation. Second. Any further detail? Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and call it a vote.
Director Don Deere,
Yes.
Director Gloria Gray,
Yes.
Director Harold Williams,
Yes.
Director Desi Alvarez,
No,
President Scott Houston.
Yes. Very good. Passes 4-1. All right, we'll move on to the next item, which is 8B as in boy, fiscal year 23-24 district sponsorship request. EJ.
Yes, Mr. President, the item before you is item 8B. This does begin on packet page 108. This item was taken up by the Finance and Administration Committee and was presented by Ms. Hazel Vasquez, our Deputy Board Secretary. At that time, the committee requested that staff review the materials provided by Water Reuse to make a recommendation on the potential level of sponsorship. In looking at the materials that are presented, and I believe the materials begin on packet page 110, you can see that there are several benefits of West Basin sponsoring this event. If you turn to packet page 113, you can see a breakdown of the different levels of sponsorship. It's important to note, and it was mentioned at the F&A committee, that West Basin Municipal Water District previously sponsored this event at the advocate level, which was $2,500. Our logo is prominently displayed on their website at this time. And looking at the different levels, and I believe in committee we discussed the innovator level versus the visionary level. It's important to note that there is a $2,500 difference between the two, but it is worth noting that the cost of attending the event for a member agency is $950. Of course, the visionary comes with 2 free registrations, and then again, it provides 2 discounted tickets. That's a saving of roughly $2,800. Of course, the innovator level at $5,000, you have that savings of $950. If you look at the additional materials and look at what we've done in the past, The board may want to consider the visionary level of $7,500, but of course, this is the decision of the board of directors. We think that we would have great value in any of the sponsorships with water reuse, as West Basin Municipal Water District is a prominent member of that organization and extremely active. So we would definitely have more than, or 4 or more people in attendance at that conference, as we would typically do. So there are savings there as far as those member or registrations. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Why don't you, if it's okay, EJ, could you read the recommendation?
Happy to do that. Staff recommends that the board consider approving sponsorship of the 2024 Water Reuse Annual Symposium event scheduled to be held from Monday, March 11th, 2024 through Thursday, March 14th, 2024 in the amount of $7,500.
I'll move it. Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table and a second. Is there any discussion? Yes, Director Albert.
This conference is gonna be in Denver. Okay? Last year, where was it?
I'm entirely sure. I don't know. Are you aware?
And let me double check that off the top of my head. I'm not sure, sorry.
The one went last year?
I know I personally didn't, so I couldn't tell you where it was, but
Oh, but you did mention that this year we're gonna have 4 staff members attending?
yes. At my direction, working with the entire West Basin staff, we've been putting far more requests in for speaking opportunities at all of our events throughout the industry. Had some luck of late as far as a couple of different conferences having sometimes as many as 2 presentations.
So while you're still looking for it, what was your comment or your question here, John?
Well, I'm just asking questions right now. Are any of our staff making presentations?
Well, I know that water reuse conference is coming up, I think, next week. I do know that we are presenting at that conference. We have a presentation on the Juanita Mill McDonald expansion project. Mr. John Benner is speaking at that conference. I do know that I'll be attending one of the days, as well as our manager of operations will be attending one of those days as well.
Yeah, but this is for the Water Reuse Symposium,
Correct.
and it's gonna be in Denver, and it's gonna be next spring. You mentioned 4 people are attending. Anybody gonna be making presentations of the 4 that are attending?
At this time, I don't know. And to answer your question, the last one was held in Atlanta.
In where?
Atlanta.
That's what I thought. And how much did we contribute last time?
We are listed as a advocate sponsor.
So we're being asked to promote this, to support this at the visionary level, which is $7,500 for a conference that's pretty widely attended in Denver. Last year, we sponsored it at the advocate level. The difference between the two is $5,000. The benefit is that our attendance, or the cost to send 4 of our staff will be $2,900 instead of $3,800. I'm sorry. $900 instead of $3,800.
$2,800 versus the $950 as far as just the registration.
Did a $2,900 kickback. It would have cost us $3,800 to send 4 people. And that comes at a cost of, or that savings of $2,900 comes at a cost of about $5,000. That doesn't seem like a good investment to me. The other question I have is, as an innovator and as a visionary, you have the branded water bottle But it has a, that that item has to be fulfilled by sponsor. Does that mean that we have to provide the water bottles?
I would need to call and ask. I apologize for not knowing.
I mean, that's the way
Okay,
I read that asterisk.
well, I don't want to interrupt you, but it looks like I can answer the question here because it says sponsorship package and that item says choice of one of those things. So if you do the water bottle, yes, you're providing the water bottle, but otherwise you could be named on some of these other things, so.
I understand.
Right.
My
So someone will
next
make a
question was
decision
gonna
if we're
go,
sending water bottles or not. I don't
my,
know.
I understand.
Okay, go ahead.
I have a whole series of questions here.
Okay.
So, so that was one. On the offsite tour, what is the offsite tour, and is that something that you get as an attendee?
Yes, so typically at Water Reuse, they've provided tours of local facilities. So there's busing provided and they take you offsite to tour a facility. Somewhere at any of those conferences, they kind of brand it as a West Basin provided event. You're basically paying for the naming rights. So similar to kind of a breakout session or any one of the networking break I see here. So it's just that they utilize your name and logo.
So for all of these, whether we do the offsite tour or the workshop sponsor or the literature distribution, all we're doing is we're picking some activity and we're sponsoring that activity
That is correct.
and we get our logo on it. Seems like an awful lot of money, in my opinion, for that level. I think at the advocate level, it's still a lot of money. There are other levels that you can participate at. So what about at $1,000, you can have the water reuse review featured content. And that would get you the ability to be out there every month. And we would still have our logo out there. Would that be also beneficiary? I guess I'm looking at this and I could support sponsoring this at $1,000, but I don't understand what the benefit is for us to really sponsor it at the higher amounts. For a conference, it's going to be in Denver. It is widely attended. But a lot of the folks that are going there are from out of state and they're not familiar with West Basin. I don't see that them seeing West Basin is going to make any difference in how they perceive us. They're going to go back to their respective states or regions of the country where we don't really conduct business. In terms of really getting our name out there, I think it'd be much better if we did it in California. But even then, I'm very cautious about how we're spending our money. So I would, I know that this has been moved already. I don't know I think it's been moved. I don't know at what level.
It was moved and a second. So there's a motion on the
At
table.
what level?
It was moved in a second at the recommendation of $7,500.
I'd like to see the maker of that motion maybe consider supporting it at $1,000 level. I think that the benefit of $1,000 would probably be just equivalent to the same benefit we're gonna get at $7,500.
Okay, so,
And it's a significant savings to the district.
okay, so the maker of the motion was Director Jeter. But, Director Jeter, do you reconsider your motion to $1,000? Although that was the staff recommendation as well as we talked about this in committee. So I personally am supporting the staff recommendation on this one. But Director Jeter, what's your pleasure?
You want to make it less?
Director Alvarez wants to make it 1,000.
1,000 instead of 7,500. If you look at the amount of money we've already committed, with this expenditure of 7,500, there's a $55,000 budget for district sponsorships, we'll have spent $28,300. So we'll be at over 50%, and we're not even 50% through the fiscal year yet.
Okay. I'll consent to making it 1,000.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, so he now will roll 1,000, but we have a second on the motion, right? Does that person have to concur, Joe?
Yeah, or we get another,
Or they don't, what's that? How does that work?
or we could have another second from Director
I will.
Alvarez. And we're doing it in kind of a friendly way here, so.
Okay. So now we have a motion and a second for $1,000 on the table, correct?
Hear that first, yeah.
Okay. So with that, now we're having discussion then. Right?
So didn't we just,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
we had a whole lot of discussion
Yeah, well,
already,
yeah.
so I mean,
Well, they surpassed us for the moment. Hold on, Director Gray, they surpassed us for the moment. Now they've taken the $7,500 and they're going to 1,000. So we have to discuss 1,000 at the moment, or what have you. And that's what's on the table. So Director Gray, hold on, you're next, but Director Williams discussion and then Director Gray. Go ahead, Director Williams.
and Director Deere changed his motion.
The request of Director Alvarez, yes.
I'll support that.
Director Gray.
Yes, what was staff recommendation and what was the support for that? What was staff recommendation?
The staff recommendation based off of the materials and the discussion at the FNA committee was to sponsor at the level of $7,500, which is a visionary level of sponsorship. I believe that the motion on the floor is for a sponsorship of $1,000.
And what does that get us compared to the $7,500 that staff recommended?
It gets you the, it's called the Water Reuse Review Featured Content, which is an opportunity to be featured on the newsletter. Our staff can make, submit articles, and we will be represented every, I think it's a monthly newsletter, I'm not sure on that. But that's what it is.
Director Alvarez, is there a page number?
Yeah, it's on page 118.
118, thank you.
Go ahead, Director
My
Gray.
point, I still have the floor, is that I'm trying.
Oh, yeah, you do.
Right. There's a lot of difference between 7,500 and 1,000, and I'm trying to figure out right here why staff is recommending 7,500. And then I know it's on the motion on the floor for 1,000. So what are we not getting that staff may think that we should consider?
Well, why don't I jump in for a second? Because we talked about this at the water, at the FNA committee, and at the time, staff had no recommendation. They were neutral, I think as they should be. And Director Williams and I talked about it, and I think we were sort of between either the 5,000 or maybe higher if necessary. But we asked staff the other day to come back to this meeting with a recommendation because we wanted to know, well, how many people might potentially go? And this particular higher level sponsorship for 7,500, it covers 2 registrations. So those are automatically covered. It gives you 2 discounted registrations. And then, of course, you get these other things that are included with the sponsorship. So staff did come back with a recommendation of the $7,500 because they anticipate we will probably have at least 4 people, if not more, attending that conference in the new year. And by the way, this would apply to a director too. It doesn't just apply to staff. I don't know who's going to go down the road yet. We don't know. It's still March, but staff did the due diligence. I understand Director Alvarez's perspective. I think last year he was the one that got us down to the 2,500 last year or something like that. I disagree. So, it's on the floor. Board members have been changing their minds in midstream here. So I don't know if that answers your question, Director Gray, but I hope it helps.
Well, Mr. Chair, the $1,000 does not give us opportunities for anyone to attend. Is that what that true?
That is
Right,
correct.
$150.
$1,000, yeah, $1,000 does not include anything about attendance, just so you know.
And so
Just,
what,
but let's, can I clarify that
If-
also?
Okay, hold on, Gray. Director Alvarez wants to clarify something.
Okay.
thank you.
If we support, if we don't send anybody, our cost is $3,800. I'm sorry, if we send the 4 people we're intending to send, our cost is $3,800. The difference from 3,800 to 7,500 sponsorship level is $2,700. I'm sorry, $3,700. The benefit that we get if we do support at the $7,500 level is another $2,900. So what we're saving is not that significant when our out-of-pocket costs are still going to be more than paying the $3,800 plus the $1,000 for the sponsorship at the lower level. We're still sponsoring it. We'll still be recognized as a sponsor. We'll still see our logo out there. And we'll see our logo out there in the newsletter. It comes out monthly as opposed to at the symposium, which is occurring over a few days in Denver. And if you look at where we've spent our budget, if we spend at the $7,500 level, the district sponsorship budget, which is less than 50% of the fiscal years gone by, will have spent over 50% of the budget. So it makes some sense to reduce that, spend at a lower level. There's going to be a lot more sponsorship opportunities, and we do need to be selective about sponsoring them. And we have a limited budget unless we want to then increase the budget if we, and I don't think that that's necessarily prudent when we can
Yeah,
benefit from a lower sponsorship level today.
all right, well, thank you, Director Alvarez. I'm not sure if it should be at that level. I'm concerned about, the fact that it limits the opportunity for staff or whomever to attend. And so I would like, and I know there's a motion on the floor, but did we sponsor at the 2,500 level before and others were able to attend? Staff or Mr. President, or Chair rather? Or...
Yes, Director Gray, last year, the event was held in Atlanta. West Basin was an advocate sponsor. So that was the $2,500 level. And I don't know if this will help at all, but to put this in a little bit of perspective, last year, the visionary sponsors included Metropolitan Water District, NACWA, Arcadis, and then if you move up to the champion level, it was Eastern Municipal Water District, El Paso Water District, and NWRI. And excuse me, I failed to mention at this visionary level was also Irvine Ranch Water District and the Water Replenishment District, WRD. And then I just wanted to clarify one thing for our board, just because I want to make sure that we set expectations. So my understanding, Director Alvarez, from the 1,000 that you mentioned, it's on packet page 117. And that notes that there are marketing opportunities beyond the conference. And so the water reuse review featured content allows West Basin to provide white papers and materials to the newsletter. They would incorporate that for only $1,000 and that would go out. But you would not see any representation of West Basin at the actual conference if we were to do that level. And so I just want to make sure in case members of the board or staff are there. I just want to make sure.
I appreciate that. I think I mentioned that.
Wait. Hello, can you go back to answer my question? What level allows at least two people to attend? That was my question. What level?
For at least 2 people to attend, it would require, for free, it would require the visionary. That
What
provides
about
2 free.
Two.
Correct.
Tell me what the amount for 2. What would it require for 2?
That's the $7,500.
That is
sponsorship.
the 75, so that's for two, it's nothing in between. So that's why you're recommending that. Okay. All right, thank you.
But let's be clear, when we make these recommendations and say we get 2 free attendees, the 2 attendees would cost us $1,900 if we paid for it out of pocket without any support.
Mhm.
And yet, we're gonna pay $7,500 in order to save $1,900. That's, when they're giving you something for free, always be careful. Because every time somebody says, I got something for free for you, I go, really?
There is no free.
There are no free lunches.
All right.
All right,
Right.
everybody.
Can I just
Thank you.
ask a follow-up question, please? So
Yes, Director.
if we support, thank you, Mr. Chair, I really appreciate indulgence. So if we approve
Sure.
1,000, then attendees can attend at the $1,800 point, I think that Director Alvarez was making. Is that correct, EJ?
That is
correct?
correct.
How much
Okay,
is
thank
the attendee amount?
It's $950.
How much?
950.
Okay. So
Thank you.
now, mind you, look, I know we nickel and dime over these sponsorships more than I've seen anything ever, but look, I know Director Alvarez is saying what he says, but on the other hand, there's more to it than people getting to go to a conference and built in cost. Obviously, there's ads, there's other things that go into this. So whether we want to put our name on something or not, that's up to us as a board, whether it's been done in the past or not. More than likely, a few people from this agency will be on this conference, and that's why it did make sense. If you're going to do some sort of advertisement, and on top of it, you get some complimentary registrations and some discounted registrations, then by all means. And I do want our staff to go to these conferences. And by the way, what we didn't even talk about is there's our own travel budget, the travel budget for staff or directors that none of this covers, okay? So either way, I personally applaud staff for doing what our committee has. I think this is $7,500 is reasonable, but a new motion's on the table for 1,000. So what we're gonna do, we'll vote on that. I'm not gonna support bringing it down to that level, but we'll see where the votes go. But the motion on the table is for $1,000 sponsorship, and there's a second. So unless anybody has something dire to say, I'm gonna call the question.
Yeah, I have something.
Go
to
ahead,
say.
go ahead.
Okay. I'm confused because I thought we had a motion on the floor. In order to change that, we would have to have a substitute motion. So what happened to the substitute
It
motion?
was an amendment.
You're going to amend it rather than,
Director Deere accepted the amendment and I seconded it.
is that what happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the motion that was became a new motion, basically.
Why didn't we do the substitute motion? I think.
Well, an amended motion and a substitute motion are more or less the same thing. And if the maker of the motion is open to changing it, then you can handle it in a little more
This is called.
Casual way.
Okay, I'm running the meeting.
Okay.
Just, please, thank you.
All right, we'll run the meeting.
So for what it's worth, make of the motion with the amendment, right? So, all right, so EJ, can you please read us what the motion is so we know what we're voting?
Thank you.
And I'm not supporting this motion. Go ahead.
Let me make sure that I have it in front of me before I. And Director Alvarez, please correct me if I'm wrong. The recommendation is that the board consider approving a sponsorship of the water reuse review featured content in the amount of $1,000 for materials to be submitted to water reuse for publishing in their monthly review magazine.
Okay, very good. So that's the motion. So let's go ahead and take a vote. Go ahead.
People are going to think I'm goofy because I'm not going to vote for my motion, but I'm not going to vote for my motion.
Okay, very good. Let's go ahead and vote on this motion.
Director Don Deere,
No.
Director Gloria Gray, Director
No.
Gray,
No,
Director Harold Williams,
No,
Director Desi Alvarez,
Yes,
President Scott Houston.
No. Okay, so that motion failed. So now I'll entertain a new motion for the recommendation, the staff recommendation for $7,500 sponsorship. Is there someone who'd like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Here makes it. William second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's please take a vote.
Director Don Deere,
Yes.
Director Gloria Gray,
Yes,
Director Harold Williams,
Yes.
Director Desi Alvarez,
No,
President Scott Houston.
Yeah. Thank you very much. 4-1. So with that, let's go to the next item on our agenda.
Hey, man.
Item 8C is in CAT, annual review of the West Basin approved per diem meetings in consideration of a resolution number 10-23-1198. EJ.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. This item is our annual review of West Basin approved per diem meetings in consideration of resolution number 101/23/1198. And this item was discussed at the Ethics Committee. And it was requested by the Ethics Committee and those board members that were in attendance to amend the materials that are provided in the admin code as it relate to approved per diem meetings, to include, I believe, committee meetings of associations in which West Basin Municipal Water District is a member of, as well as I believe that there are 3 edits made to the chamber meetings that were allowable. We do have Haza Vasquez here if there are any questions related to the direction provided by the Ethics Committee.
Let me just say, so we heard this at ethics, and it was pretty clear. I don't think we need a long drawn out presentation. But if the director or any director has any questions or would like something further, and we'll opine now, otherwise, staff did bring back what we talked about today.
And I would like to add that we held several internal meetings, which included our legal counsel at Best and Krieger. They did provide us some assistance as far as making those edits throughout this process. And so, of course, Joe is here if you have any specific questions.
Any questions?
I'll move to adopt the resolution.
oh, we're not gonna have a presentation?
Well, I was asking if anybody wanted one, you didn't.
I'm sorry.
Well, let's do this. So he moved it. Is there a
Second.
second? Okay, so there's a second, and we can still have discussion. It doesn't stop us. So we have a motion on the table. So go ahead. You wanted a presentation, Director Alvarez?
Yes,
Go ahead.
So if I can turn your attention, this item begins on packet page 120. I'm going to turn your attention to page 121, just to not go over the whole thing, if that's okay. I'll just point out the edits that are being presented for your consideration today. You'll note that some of these are edits that we provided for the Ethics Committee to consider, and then others are based on those discussions, and then as well those internal discussions that EJ mentioned. So on packet page 121, we do have a couple just brief remarks there pertaining to the changes that we are recommending for consideration. The first one is to section 2-1.306, subsection N, subsection 3, and that would be to change the Los Angeles County, that term, to West Basin's tax home. And we also define what West Basin's tax home is in that same section. We did add a new section after that, so that would be subsection 4, and that section is to further expand and clarify the applicable imputed tax provisions of the Internal Revenue Code when staying within West Basin's tax home. The other change on here, and this one was presented to the committee, or these next two were presented to the committee, and those seem to have the committee's support, so no changes were noted on that. But that is one technical change, changing his or her to there. And then that last one is for section O, for number 2 under that, and that is to expand on and clarify on the meal limit provisions. Another section that we did that we are proposing changes to, and this also comes from the recommendation of the committee, is to Exhibit 1 of the Code of Conduct. And Exhibit 1 is West Basin approved per diem meetings. So there were a couple comments that the committee provided, specifically to add Aqua Region 8. It's listed on there, but only board meetings are listed. So the request was to add committee meetings. The next one was pertaining to the chambers of commerce that are listed. It was requested that we add the South Bay Association of Chambers of Commerce. And then as you'll note as well, there are 2 additional changes, and these are staff's recommendations. Beverly Hills Chamber of Commerce. We are members of that chamber. However, that chamber is not listed on the approved per diem list. So we are recommending that for addition at this point. And we are also requesting consideration to remove commerce. Now, I did want to point out that Commerce does not have a Commerce Chamber of Commerce. It's the Commerce Business Council Chamber of Commerce. We are not members of either, neither is in our service area, hence the recommendation to remove that from the list. The last one, and this is also a committee recommended addition, is to add BizFed, the Los Angeles County Business Federation. So that has been included. To get you to packet, or if I can get you to packet page 123, this is where the red line version starts, and it'll be a little easier to kind of point out those edits that we are suggesting. If you look, let me actually just locate it here, sorry. Okay, actually, if I can turn you to 124, this is where the bulk of the edits begin. You'll notice on number 3, this is where we removed Los Angeles County and inserted the phrase West Basin's tax home. To define that, we did include that is 50-mile radius of district headquarters. That may sound familiar, it is the same radius that we use for the mileage also from the Internal Revenue Code. So anytime that you do claim mileage, it has to be anywhere outside of 50 miles from this location. So to match it up and to make it easier, we are using that as well for the lodging whenever you are traveling in state but outside of tax home. For section 4, here's where we separated. Some of the comments that we heard at the committee was that it wasn't clear if you could stay, if that barred you from staying within the 50 limits and having the district cover that. There were questions about imputed income that came up as well. So we did add this section to clarify that. And just to read it, so, and you let me know if that is clear and if it addresses the concerns of the committee. So for number 4, that would be attendance at a conference or business meeting in state and within the tax home. Again, that tax home being within a 50-mile radius of the district headquarters, which is here DLD. So for travel in state and within West Basin's tax home, 50-mile radius of district headquarters, directors shall be entitled to lodging for each night of the conference or meeting, plus 1 night's lodging for either 1 day prior or 1 day after the conference or meeting. Such entitlement shall be subject to the imputed income provisions of the Internal Revenue Code. Directors shall receive reimbursement for business meals incurred on the days spent traveling to the conference/meeting. Such reimbursements shall be subject to the imputed income provisions of the Internal Revenue Code. So again, that was to address the confusion between whether you are able to get a hotel. I think the examples were Pasadena, Anaheim. So at this point, if it's within 50 miles, yes, you can stay. Yes, the district can cover it. However, that's when imputed income provisions of the Internal Revenue Code would play a part. And so that number 3 was the one that we just kept it clean. That is what you're used to, essentially the standard of anything outside of the 50-mile radius, that there's no imputed income implications. The district is able to cover lodging for 1 day before or 1 day after the conference, including every day of the conference in between. Do you have any questions regarding those sections?
I don't know about, one of the things maybe we, as you're talking, I was thinking, maybe what we should do is go by section and discuss it amongst ourselves. Because otherwise you can go through all of them and then we're probably going to come back and say, I can support that section, I can't support this one. So if on this page, there are 2 sections. The first section basically says that for attendance at conferences in state, but outside of the home base, which is a 50-mile radius from our district, and that we would be entitled to compensation or reimbursement for lodging. I don't see a problem with that. I think that's a very supportable. The second one is attendance at conferences in state, but within the tax zone, within the 50 miles, which is close to our respective homes. I don't see the need for that one. And it's an imputed value at the end of the day. If you do take it and reimburse for that, then you will have a 1099 or some other form that you're gonna have to file. I don't think it's that change is worth the while. I'm not supportive of that. I don't know what the other board members are, but those are the two on that page. So I'm okay with the first change. I'm not supportive of the second one.
Okay, so we're still taking this as one whole lump.
No, you can
Well,
take it
well-
section by section to make a recommendation.
We can make recommendations, but this is the item that's on the agenda today, and, I mean, we vetted this at ethics. So we can go through, if you want to go through and edit every one of these, we can do that, but, you know, I don't see a reason. I don't know what directors want to do, but, you know, quite frankly, again, what we did, and this is why this is in here now, is so that we would understand if we need to stay at a hotel that's within that radius, that we fill with the 1099 on the IRS side of it. Because inevitably, there will be conferences that are within that radius. What we didn't want to do is preclude the directors or staff from staying at a hotel when there's a conference, like in Anaheim or Pasadena or downtown Los Angeles, because I'm sure not everybody wants to drive back and forth 2 or 3 days on the road. That was why we actually literally had this discussion at the ethics committee, so we make sure this was being addressed properly. So, look, I don't know what else to do, but I don't want to break this into parts. That's what I'm saying. You can give us your opinion on each one, and we can go through these line item by line item, but I don't see us breaking this out, or what do we do? Skip it for another month?
No, you can break it out and you can give direction and say, we're good with A, B, C, D, and we're not good with E and F.
All right,
And then,
well, you know what, why don't you give us your thoughts, I guess, because I'm okay with everything that's been presented, so that's my thought. Go ahead, Director Alvarez.
All right, why don't you go to, packet page 125. The first one, I think is fine, that, for business meals, you may recover, the expense for that. But on item number, sub-item number I, it says that directors, where there is no overnight travel for business meals, that are not director only. So if a director takes somebody to lunch for business, they're gonna be restricted, the way I read that. I would say it should be the $110, and why break it up into $30? It's hard today to take somebody to lunch for $50, for $30, which is what the law is here.
Director Alvarez, if I could just point out that,
Maybe you can clarify that for me?
well, real quick, item 2I is related, as you mentioned, to directors. If the director had a business-related guest, that would be handled under 2.3I, which is business meals provided by a director to another person. And of course, this requires you to state the purpose of that meeting and how it's related to the business of the district. But your guest would be subjected to the same dollar limit. So it would be $30 per person.
I think that generally if directors are taking someone out to lunch, $30 or even $50 is very limiting. I would just say it should be the $110.
But if it was 4 people, is it 110 per person or?
4 people, you'd be hard pressed to entertain them for $110. So I would say, I almost don't like the idea of putting a limit there, but I think it is prudent to have a limit. And maybe it should be $110 per person, and it's up to a director to exercise their judgment of where they select to go to lunch. But I'm hard pressed to see taking someone out on an important lunch where you want to conduct business and being able to do it for $50. And that's for dinner. For lunch, it's less. It's just not people. And I don't think I've ever charged a business meal to the district yet, so I'm not speaking for myself, but I'm just being practical. In today's world, show me where you can go to lunch for a nice lunch if you're really conducting a business lunch and you're gonna spend less than $50. And that's what, the way this is read, or the way I read it anyway, somebody can explain me if I'm wrong, and that's for dinner.
That is correct. So it's worth noting that originally the dollar limits were 20 for breakfast, 30 for lunch, and 50 for dinner. Again, that would be for a director and or their guest. There was a request made last year to group those for overnight travel. So when you're traveling somewhere, and so that's how we got to the 100. There was a recommendation that we increase the breakfast amount from $20 to $30, so that's how we got to the 110. But of course, if at the direction of the board, you wanted to edit those dollar limitations, we could easily make that edit and of course approve
I
that.
don't know where the rest of the board is, but I would support increasing that to $110. I just don't see it as being practical at the lower amount. If somebody really is going to be entertaining and charging it to the district.
Well, let me ask the question then, Director Alvarez. So when you say 100, just say 110 for the day, not any one specific meal. Is that?
I'm saying that for where it's a business meal, where you are entertaining for, you're promoting the district business, when you're having a business meal, that it should be $110 per person. I don't think that a lunch will cost that much, but definitely will cost $50, more than $50 per person at a typical establishment that you might be entertaining somebody. So I would suggest that it be the $110 per person. And I think that all of the directors can exercise judgment where they select it. You don't have to have a super fancy place, but you would like to do business entertainment in a nice restaurant. And that's going to cost you more than $50 a person without liquor.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Director Gray, and then Joe has a comment, but Director Gray.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to clarify Director Alvarez's comment. Is he said $110 per day for a business bill, or is he saying it could be multiple business meals because people can have multiple meals a day with that concerning business, so that would be $330. So is that what he's saying?
That's not quite what I'm saying, Director Gray. I'm saying, I'm not assuming that somebody's going to have 3 business meals a day. You probably would have 1 business meal. You might have 3 persons that you're entertaining during that business meal. And that's what my comment goes to.
Yeah, but
because right now, the number that's being proposed is quite a bit less, and it's going to be hard pressed to take people out to lunch for $30 if you're really having a business lunch at a restaurant.
Yeah, I thought we had a per diem of $100 per day, period, and we could use it for any meal. Is that correct, Mr. Chair?
I'll let EJ answer that one.
So yes, for overnight travel, what the direction was from the board of directors was to just group the entire meal amount so that provided some flexibility. So you wouldn't be held to the 20 for breakfast, 30 for lunch, and 50 for dinner. If you wanted to do something, maybe you're a person that doesn't have breakfast, you could do a coffee or whatnot, and then maybe lunch, you have a larger lunch, and dinner, you have a different dinner. But you'd be limited to the total dollar amount for each of the meals for overnight travel. Our understanding was from that discussion.
Well, but you keep using overnight travel. Does that mean, because we could have business meals here in the city, does that apply any.
So that would not
place
apply.
overnight. So that's only
The-
overnight travel.
Correct. The grouping of the meals would only apply when you'd be in a situation where you would possibly need the breakfast, lunch, and dinner. For any individual meeting, so say you're local and you have a business meeting, then of course you'd be subjected to that same dollar limitation. Now, in this case, as I mentioned, we raised the breakfast from $20 to $30. If the board would like to contemplate upping that limit, of course, staff would take note and we could take action. And it's worth noting that this item does have a related corresponding action. The next item on the agenda, we would be applying the same possible policy to staff as well. So that would be the next item. So, you know, this discussion would have the sweeping effect as far as affecting the next resolution as well.
Okay, well, okay. So you're saying, let me make sure I understood what you said. So the $100 applies to overnight travel. We can use it any way we want at any meal setting. And then locally, it applies, the policy applies at $30 for breakfast. What is it for lunch and what is it for dinner?
It's 30, 30, and 50. That's what's proposed. If you
Okay.
look at the current code, it's 20,
Okay.
30, 50.
And 50, okay, thank you. And Mr. Chair,
Yeah. Yes.
I'll wait until I hear further discussion, but I think it's still kind of unclear if we just do, if we say 110. I agree with Director Alvarez. I think a good meal would probably be maybe over 110, that may be 110 rather than $100. But we're assuming that the other 30, I guess the other 30 and 30 would apply unless we're saying $110 per day. Which I think may make more sense, but those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay. I know you probably got more, but let me ask a quick clarifying question, because part of the reason this came up, EJ, right, was when we changed it to $110 per day flat, this other piece didn't get apparently changed in our code, and it was still said 20, 30, 50 for the, you know, like a no overnight travel scenario, right? So number one, that's why we're here, right?
Yes. Well, we're here
And then-
because this is required annually.
Yeah. And then on top of it, that's when you all were looking at like, okay, one, we didn't get this fixed properly the first time. I don't know what happened, but that's what happened. Then number two, we all said, well, $20 isn't gonna get anybody a decent breakfast practically, in a lot of situations, but that's why you all said 30, 30, 50. However, I do agree with Director Alvarez, like, you know, it would be way easier for all of us if it's just a lump sum, because more than likely, no one's not treating people out to multiple meals for the day. I quite frankly, I don't think I've ever taken anybody to a meal and asked the district for anything, but let me ask a point of confusion for me just on this, or make sure I'm clear. When we say, let's just say $110 for the day, we tweak that. But does that mean it's for the director only, or the director and the guest? Because we want to make sure we're clear here, because like when you do it now, you say, well, it's the $30 for that board member and what, $30 for the guest they took out on their dime? What exactly was the same versus
It's
what
not
we're
clear.
looking at?
This is the part that we admit is confusing. And as you pointed out, the reason we brought this item is because we're trying to streamline this so that our admin or our finance team has a clear understanding of what it is. And the reality is that when you're traveling and you're in a situation where you may need a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it was recommended by the board to lump that money together so that you have a little bit more flexibility to do as you want. However, if you're still taking somebody outside of that to a business meeting, you're at a conference, you see another director and you're talking about something pertinent to the district, we recognize that guest would need a limit based off of our current policy. And so the idea was that the additional person that's there for a business purpose you'd be able to be reimbursed for that per meal dollar limit. Now, if you bring it back locally, if the directors were to be at a business meeting, our understanding was at that time when the board made that action was that they still wanted the dollar limitations per meal limit. You would need the 100, and in this case, 110, because you're not having a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You're just having your breakfast or lunch or your dinner. So that was the rationale for the dollar limits. If the board wants to raise those per meal limits, of course, we can take that down. And if the board wants to always hold that lump sum, that would be fine too. We can administer it. But then you'd have to recognize that a single meal may be as much as 110.
Correct. Well, let's do this. Director Alvarez, I think has more.
I just think that the number as it is, if you're gonna do any entertainment, is very low. I'll give you just an example, personal example. I had a business lunch last Friday. And it cost me, for two people, at a nice restaurant, not the super most expensive restaurant, but at a nice restaurant, cost me about $135 including tip. And that was for two. You're not going to be able to entertain and we didn't have anything fancy, to be honest. It could have been more. And nobody drank any liquor. That was.
Wouldn't pay for that anyways.
And liquor is not to be charged in any case. So I'm just being realistic. When I looked at the numbers, I said, come on. If you're going to be entertaining, you're going to be entertaining at a decent place. And it's going to cost money, and things have just gotten expensive. And we should recognize that. That's why I would support increasing those limits.
All right, so for this item, would you just recommend we change the language on this and we just, instead of breaking it out, we just say have individual meal limits of $110 per day, basically?
For business meal.
On the I, on the two.
And I would say, and maybe if you think 110 is much, make it $75 per person per business meal.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, the only thing I wanted to clarify, so if it's $75 per person per meal, that's easy to account for in I, because you remove the 30, 30, 50, and it's 75 for each, and we can write that there. My question for you would be on 2I, for business meals for directors when there's overnight travel, would that simply be a lump sum grouped 75 times 3?
If they're entertaining, let's say you're at a conference and you take out Director Y from District J. Then again, it should be the same thing because you're going to be hard pressed to keep it within that limit. And when you submit for reimbursement, you're going to identify, I had lunch with X person. So I think as long as that and you're required to submit your receipt and all of the backup material, you would identify who you entertain. But I think that you need to be realistic about what it costs to go out and have a decent business meeting.
Very good, but EJ,
Just because we have our legal counsel here, so what I heard you say is that in 2I, it would be $75 for each. And then what you just mentioned about the guest would be 3I, because that's the area where we, so anybody that you're entertaining or meeting with for business purposes would be $75. But under 2I, that's when you get into the business travel. And if you're at a conference and you go out to breakfast, you go out to lunch, and you go out to dinner, that's $225 that you'd be eligible for. Or is that what the recommendation is to have $225 there?
No. If it's just a director, I'm good with $110. I'm saying I'm at a conference and I meet somebody that I find, we do have a lot to discuss and it would be in the benefit of the district. So we're going to go to have lunch and we're going to pick up the lunch, West Basin. That in that case, the $110 that I have for just a conference is not going to cover that business expense. So it should be, even if you are at a conference, if it is an entertainment, it's a business meal, then you should be allowed to recover the same amount, the 75 or 110. I'm good with either or. It seemed to me that people were a little scared of the 110, so it's okay making 75, but realistically, if you're gonna have lunch and you're gonna have it at a decent place, et cetera, and not at McDonald's, even at McDonald's, it's gonna cost you $30 for two people.
That's true.
So let's just be honest and treat directors properly in this case. You are representing the district.
And yes, if you can, there's like one area where I'm just a little.
Well, I just want to clarify.
Can
So,
we- yeah,
so
can
how
we
about,
get this faster, but here's
Yeah.
the thing. There's
Okay.
two paragraphs, right? So the middle
Yeah.
paragraph sounds like we leave it alone, the 110, as written.
Well,
I think I have it.
Okay.
So the first paragraph, the question is, if you're by yourself, do you want to have a limit of 30, 30, 50, or do you want to have 75, 75, 75? That's, you're eating with nobody else other than yourself, maybe a fellow director. No one's treating anybody. There's no overnight travel involved.
Then $110 for the day for a director alone is fine.
Right, yeah, I didn't hear.
Okay, so that's 2I, instead of it being 30, 30, 50, it would just be 110.
There you go.
There's really no difference between 2I and 2.
That's what I thought we said earlier.
Okay, so we can combine those, so whether it's overnight or whether it's not, it's gonna be $110 a day. Even if you have one meal.
Right.
Then you're, okay, and then for the 3,
And you still have to submit your receipt.
right, so it sounds like for the 3, the other exception is if you're entertaining somebody else and paying for them, then the limits would be 75, 75, 75
Per
per person,
person. So
per
that-
meal. So a director could have, if they entertain 3 times, whatever that is, $225 or
And
something.
you still have to submit your receipt and identify who you entertain.
Okay, the only confusing thing I can see is that if you know, I guess that you'd have to just segregate between the individual meals at 110 and hosting somebody where the limits go up.
Right.
There's paperwork.
Okay, I think I,
There's paperwork involved. I mean, but, and rightfully so, you should be able to say, no, I did entertain so-and-so and they represent whatever agency they're represented or company that you're entertaining.
okay, so the 75 limit for the third one would apply to guests as well as directors. That's the only confusion, is that we have 110 max, but if you throw in a third party, then the directors are allowed to spend more, because presumably going to a nicer place than they might go over there.
can you succinct, like, hit all three
I
of
think
these?
you got it.
I've
Yeah,
got
so I
finance
think
back here. And we,
Basically, one is going to go away, and it's going to be director, whether there's overnight or not overnight, it's going to be $110 a day.
We'll still stay in there, right, Joe? But I mean, we're just,
We'll combine 1 and 2, yeah. It'd be $110 a day for solo meals, whether it's a same day or overnight.
Then you have the business meal.
And then if you're hosting somebody at a business meal, then it would be $75 per meal per person. And maybe that's a accounting
I just
nightmare.
want to clarify, we're not talking about solo meals
right.
in this. Thank you. I just want to make sure, just, we're talking about business meals.
Business meals.
All right, when I say solo, though, I just mean you yourself as a director are not paying for anybody else, which is, I think, 2I, right?
Yes,
Okay, got it.
yes. The 1 and 2 was basically overnight or no overnight. So we want to distinguish when you're in town and you're having a business meeting versus when you're out of town and you're having a business meeting. And then 3 is how much is the limit if you have a guest?
Right, and it sounds like 1 and 2, the distinction is going away.
Yes.
It's $110 regardless. And 3 is going to be $75 per person, including directors, per meal. The only thing I was saying that might be confusing is that you have the 110 overlapped with the 225 for directors. Is that, you understand what I'm saying there?
Right.
You're smarter than I am, I'm sure.
No.
On the money stuff.
Just want to make sure.
Is that manageable?
I just want to make sure it's clear,
Yeah,
because it doesn't sound clear to me, but if you have it down,
So I think the only thing that for the third, 3 little I's would be that if you're entertaining somebody and paying for them, then it's $75 per person per meal, including the directors.
can I, My recommendation would be that we defer this item. My question for you would be, if a director took another director out to eat and they're subject to the 75, but they're provided $110 for the day for their meals, would that mean that they only have $35 remaining?
No.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but as drafted, to me, that's how I would read that. And so I think that when you're applying single meal limits, and then you're applying a different standard for a full day of meals, they need to, because they need to operate together.
So let's do this. Let's continue talking about it, but I think we're not going to fight.
The other alternative, which I'm fine with also, would be when you are entertaining someone, when it is a business meal, that there be no limit.
And staff is okay.
And that makes it easiest. I think business meals are that's what they are. I don't expect somebody to be spending, $500 for two people for lunch. It is not unreasonable with tip to spend between $100 and $150 for lunch for two people.
I think you can do that. The only issue is whether you would make that policy also applicable to staff or not, or whether you.
Well, I think with staff, I want to have that discussion. It's a little bit different.
Because I thought that we were trying to make this equal.
Historically, it's been universal for staff as well as the board. It does relate to two different portions of our ethics code and our admin code.
Mhm.
And so how we apply that, we'd have to look at.
They're not required to be the same, but certainly.
Yeah.
I think
That's why they're two separate items here.
True, I understand that, but I'm just. Here's the question. Do you want staff to have greater limit than the board of directors or vice versa? Because I like it being equal personally, but I'm just curious about your opinion here. The staff are the ones that take folks out to eat and do things like that, more than directors.
Well, if you want to jump to the discussion of staff, I had questions and concerns about the staff. I wouldn't treat the staff the same. It's one thing to have the general manager entertain someone, whether it be a director or someone else. I think that the general manager's limits should be different. I do not think that junior staff, when they travel, are entertaining not the same type of business meals that the director or the general manager encounter. So there has to be a differentiation there.
Okay, so let's do this, you guys. I don't know what else to do at the moment. Here's what I want to do, I guess. I don't think we're going to take action on this one today, but I don't mind. Let's continue the conversation so staff has something to come back to us with next month. But, are we clear on this one? Where we're at, although there's still a challenge you guys got to work out. Go ahead.
I think we're clear, but I think EJ's point is a good one. How the 110 interacts with the 225 and whatnot. We want to make sure that we're clear. Yeah.
Okay. So
I think we understand where the board wants to be.
I agree with that.
110, and the third one's the quirky one, right? That's the one you guys got to.
Yeah. I think we know where you want to go, but yeah.
Because, look, don't get me wrong. Yes, I understand this to a degree too. It sounds like the way we're writing this is that if a director went out and took out 5 or 7 people, they're at a conference running, hey, let's go out for dinner, and the director pays. But we're saying it would be either 110 per person, well, maybe 75 per person, or if we're not careful, it could be much more unlimited, which I think this is something, we all go back to, but you can see where it could get abused in the future. With a board member at some point who's running around taking people out to very expensive meals. That's
and within these districts, by that I mean WRD, Central and West Basin, it has been abused in the past. Right. There is no doubt.
Yeah. So whatever limit.
I trust that the directors here have gone beyond that.
Right. Okay, well, so what's the pleasure here at the moment on this one?
I'm hearing that they're would likely want to be some kind of limit. And certainly the option of no limit could be presented as well. But that's, it's a judgment call for all of you.
The one thing is that whenever you get reimbursed, you do have to submit a receipt and identify the party that you entertain. And hopefully somebody does check those receipts.
We do.
And make sure there's no liquor charge.
Okay, so, all right. Continuing on, but you all are still going to talk about that situation, the director to director type of thing. Okay, let's continue on, Director Albrecht. I think you had something on.
Oh, the next one is, I think we're at the end on page 126, and I'm okay with all three of those.
Travel application, yes, those were all pretty.
And the next one was, where you wanted to eliminate commerce, because you guys don't like commerce, no.
Yeah, that one, I don't even, Hayes explained it, I don't know what that was about. Oh. Okay, so with that, unless you have any other questions.
So we're not gonna drop the resolution today, you're gonna bring it back.
That's gonna be continued.
Yeah. That one, it's a minor cleanup, it seems, but I'll need to come back with a little better.
Yeah, and I don't want to complicate it, but I think I was kind of misstated on the solo meals, and thank you, Mary Ann, but we do have on page 126, the section that says if you're eating by yourself and there's no overnight travel, then there's no reimbursement.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone understands that. Okay, I just want to make sure. I think I was misstating this one. Okay.
And that's always the way it's been, but you have to just put a little extra.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah, no worries. And this is, I mean, at the end of the day, not a lot's changing in here, but it's those limits. And then we want to figure out how that applies to the board versus the staff. All right, so let's do this. So this one, we're gonna move on from, you all are gonna bring it back next month with some more language, correct?
That's my recommendation, yes.
Anything else on this item, Director? I know we have another one right behind it. Okay, well, let's move on to 4D as in dog. Consideration of resolution number 10-23-1199, amending Administrative Code Section 3-8.105C. DJ.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. So this item, as I mentioned, and as we discussed in the Ethics Committee, was intended to make the related changes to the admin code so that the changes previously made by the Ethics Committee and Board of Directors would be applied to staff as well. Currently, as is in the admin code, staff is held to that 20, 30, 50 standard.
What page are you on today?
If you turn to packet page 137, you can see the edits, red line version.
Okay, keep going.
So you can see that item C was intended just to apply to business meals. So it was a 20, 30, 50 limitation. And that would mean that if staff member was at a business meeting locally, meeting with the South Bay City Council of Governments or Cal Water or any one of our customer agencies, we would be held to that same standard, similar to what was included for the Board of Directors that would apply to any business related guests. What the edits were intended to do was take the policy that was contemplated at the Ethics Committee and apply the same policy to staff. And so it would be the 30, 30, 50 limitations that we just discussed. And then, of course, the lumping of the meal for out of our overnight travel. So the 110. Based off the conversation that we just had, I don't know if the meal limitations is adequate as far as the 30, 30, 50. And then, of course, the lumping of the 110. The intent here was to just mirror what was being applied to the Board of Directors. And you can see that on packet page 139. And then continue all the way to packet page 140. So if I was to just summarize the red line, it was just to take the policy that you just looked at in the previous item and just apply it to staff.
Okay, so based on what we just talked about, even with the thing you're come back to, but part of your answer, you just got answered in our last conversation, right? If we're mirroring reports, seems to me. On the $110 a day.
On the $110 a day for overnight travel, again, that was just to lump the 30, 30, 50, correct? But for the business meals, staff, as is drafted here, would be held to the limitations of the 30, 30, 50, as well as their guests. And so that was obviously discussed in the previous item as well.
The director, go ahead.
So with respect to the staff, I think you do need to differentiate. When the general manager has a business meal, which is typically, most of the business meals that are held by staff are going to be done by the general manager in terms of entertaining, whether it's entertaining directors or other functionaries. The general manager should have pretty wide range of discretion, similar to board members. Now, at a level below the general manager, you have senior staff and then you have junior staff. I don't see junior staff as really needing to have business meals. It's just, there's no need for them to be entertaining on behalf of the district. So I would differentiate the policy. I would consider executive management as the level where you do have business meals. And if you needed to delegate it for whatever reason, then I would give that authority to the general manager to authorize somebody that is not specifically specified to entertain on behalf of the district to do so. So this whole section would then need some tweaking. I don't think it needs that much tweaking. It needs to be left alone and added for the to address the general manager's discretion. But it would have to come back, like the other section.
Yeah, I think we need to go back and edit it. I would just point out two things. First and foremost, any and all staff meals seeking reimbursement are thoroughly reviewed at multiple different levels. We've never received any issues, and there's really no, or very little, I would say, business-related expenses. Usually, when staff are at conferences or whatnot, they have their individual meals and they take advantage of the conference meals specifically. Secondly, I just would, and this is just a small tweak to what you're saying, because I hear you loud and clear. I want to make sure that it's noted that we're not entertaining, or at least the general manager does not take people out to entertain, but more to discuss business and obviously interrelated activities. And then the last piece is, I think I would recommend that general manager be held to the same standard as staff. I think that I've never had too many issues related to business meals. And when I do, I recognize that at that time. And I'm happy to continue to do that.
And I appreciate that, EJ, but I do think that the general manager, there will be times when you're going to be conducting a business meal or a business lunch, and the cost of that lunch is going to be significantly more than what this would allow. And so the general manager, whether it's you or someone else, should have that discretion. And I do trust that that discretion will be used judiciously.
Okay. Let's do this. Other board members have comments. I personally I don't want to make this confusing. I really feel like it needs to be equitable across the board here. I do trust our staff that they're also should be very judicious when they're doing things on behalf of this agency, and I haven't heard any issues that they have not. And I think that general manager, department heads, they all have full discretion as who will probably be out there taking folks to a lunch or some other thing. And personally, I don't think we need to put any verbiage in there that disqualifies any staff member from doing these things, but obviously it goes through layers of supervision. So personally, I don't think we need to add any further distinction there, but we can talk more about it when you bring it back. Now, the other thing too, and I want to make sure we understand this, that's what I was asking earlier. So on page 138 at the bottom, in the proposed language you have here, you were saying business meals that are not employee, blah, 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 where overnight travel is involved. District employees have individual limits of the 30, 30, and 50. But we just said the 110, right? That's just one of the ones that we would have fixed.
That is what I heard.
Mirror, that's what I wanted to make sure didn't get lost in this discussion when you come back, because that's still in here. And then the next item is number 2, of course, business meals and there's overnight travel. I mean, that's where it said $110, right? So that's just identical to what we just did. I suppose it's the item 3, right? Anyway, top of page 139, 3, right? That's the one where we just had the challenge with 2 directors are going out, et cetera. So this one probably is one you also need to look at in that context.
That is correct.
At the end of the day, to make it simple, it really should be about $110 a day for most anything, unless you guys are coming back with this $75 per person, whatever. Are you right? Am I accurate here? We're trying to make this simpler, but we still continue making it a little confusing.
No, what I've heard is that the dollar amounts need to be raised so that you're not maybe limited as far as the restaurants go. As far as the overnight travel and the grouping of the 110, I just want to consult with legal counsel as far as how we do that. It's just important to note that for a director that may be traveling, you may be used to those business meals where it's $75 per person, and so you're handling it that way. But when you're traveling, we need to understand how to apply that $75 from your 110.
If you were with someone.
Correct.
It would be, the way I meant it, and I thought it was being interpreted, it would be separate and exempt.
You'd have a $110 pot. And then if
Then you have your
you'd
inter,
have a 75.
but if you need to have business meals, you have a business meal and that's separate, and you submit your supporting documentation when you ask for reimbursement.
So in that case, you would be eligible for potentially 185.
So water reuse is gonna be meeting next month in the desert, right? And Director Williams has dinner with 2 other directors from 2 other agencies. He's gonna spend, and he's the one that's gonna entertain them because he wants to talk to them about issues at West Basin and et cetera. And he's gonna end up spending $225 for that meal. That far exceeds his $110, but it's legitimate to entertain 3 people in Palm Springs at $225 for dinner. He should be able to get reimbursed for that.
And then he would have the full remaining.
He still would have his
110
remaining, because he still had to have
for his
breakfast
Other 2
and
meals.
he'd have breakfast and lunch before he took 2 other directors out to dinner.
It's a waste of money.
Well, I don't expect you to do it every time.
Well, okay, here's what we'll do. We're gonna move on from this time. We'll let you all come back to us next month on these and let's fix them. Again, I personally think it should be very equitable across the board. We obviously found some things we thought were fixed, didn't get fixed. The other thing too, personally, a lot of times if I go out at a conference or something, there's directors, I pay for my own.
Yeah.
I don't usually,
I do too.
get reimbursed.
Now if another director picks mine up from another agency, that's another story, but I don't usually deal with it because it's just too confusing. As you just see, I don't want to get into that, but you need to have rules of the road. So appreciate that.
Understand.
And we don't expect that board members or staff will abuse these things. And of course, that's why we have the ethics committee and we have the manager who has to look at a lot of things and sign them. So
I was just gonna add one point to support what you're saying is also just the limits on gifts and reporting on gifts and being aware of that, which complicates things.
that applies to board members, but also certain levels of staff.
Correct.
if I'm not mistaken, Right, the form.
Form 700, right?
Yeah, almost, not all staff, but the majority of staff at West Basin filed.
Okay, got it. Okay, so any last comments or questions on this? Oh, here. Okay, so next month you'll have something to come back to. We don't need to go to any committees, right? We can just bring it back to the board. It should be pretty, hopefully clear. Final tweak.
And thank you for your patience through that.
Thank you. Okay, EJ, make sure I'm right. Is it E? Are we on E as in Edward?
That is correct.
Awesome. Okay, so new agreement for state legislative advocacy services.
Yes, President Houston. The item before you begins on packet page 143. This item is related to our current state legislative advocacy services agreement with Nemel Pappas and Associates. This item was heard as an information item at the Water Policy and Legislation Committee earlier this month. At that time, it was the recommendation of the Water Policy and Legislation Committee for staff to reach out to Nemel Pappas and Associates for potential renegotiation of the agreement for an additional 2 years at the same rate that they currently are paid. Staff has done that and is now recommending that the board authorize the general manager to enter into a new agreement with Nemel Pappas and Associates for state legislative advocacy services for a term of 24 months from January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2025 at a monthly rate of $12,000 per month plus reasonable expenses not to exceed 10% of the monthly rate for a total not to exceed cost of $360,000. Now, staff is on hand, obviously. Matt Vey, our manager of water policy and resources development, is here if you have any questions. Clearly, we did provide the committee with the presentation on this item, and he's happy to do that, but this was the direction of the committee.
Okay, very good. I don't need a presentation, but obviously it's a board decision. So does any director want a presentation or just want to ask questions?
I have one question.
One question, Director Allen.
The $360,800 for the 2 years, that represents an increase of what percentage over the previous 2-year contract?
0%.
So the same amount? Okay. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions? I will just say that I think that Nemel Pappas does a great job on our behalf. So I have all confidence in them. They've just really exceeded our expectations and fully support that. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that recommendation.
I'll second it.
All right, Williams moved, Director Alvarez second. Any last discussion? Director Deere? All right, well, go ahead. I'm gonna call you.
Chair.
Oh, Director Gray, go ahead.
Yes, I was gonna just kind of support the statement the chair made about our lobbyists, that I think they do a great job, and I'm going to support the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Gray. Okay, so we have a motion on the table in a second, and let's go ahead and take a vote. EJ.
Director Don Deere.
Yes.
Director Gloria Gray.
Yes.
Director Harold Williams.
Yes.
Director Desi Alvarez.
Yes.
President Scott Houston.
Yes. Thank you very much for that one. Now, item 8F is in Frank. New agreement for federal legislative advocacy services. Go ahead, EJ.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. The item before you begins on packet page 149. Similar to the previous item, this item was heard by the Water Policy and Legislation Committee earlier this month. At that time, staff presented the committee with an overview of the services provided by Van Scoyac and Associates. And at that time, the committee recommended that staff move this item from an information item to an action item for potential action today. And with that, staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to enter into a new agreement with Van Scoyac Associates for federal legislative advocacy services for a term of 24 months from January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2025 at a monthly rate of $13,250 per month with an allowance for reasonable expenses not to exceed $8,000 per year for a total cost of $303,000. I would just add, this would represent a 0% increase from your previous two-year agreement. Similar to the previous item, staff, Matt Bay, our manager of Water Policy and Resources Development, did reach out to ESA to inquire whether they would continue to work under the same terms of the previous agreement, and they have stated that they would do so. So with that, staff is on hand to answer any questions that you might have.
Very good, thank you. And I don't think we need a full presentation. Yes, Director Gray, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to make the comment that I think this, our Washington DC lobbyist also does a great job supporting West Basin, and so I'd like to move the item.
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Gray. Director Gray made the motion, Director Alvarez seconded. I completely concur as well. Any kind of questions? Thoughts? All right, I'm going to say, yes, also in DC, DSA has done a really great job on our behalf. And I think it's good that we continue a relationship, and it's nice that we are doing a 0% increase on both of these. So let's go ahead and call for the question. EJ.
Director John Deere,
Yes.
Director Gloria Gray,
Yes,
Director Harold Williams,
Yes.
Director Desi Alvarez,
Yes.
President Scott Houston.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Directors.
Thank you very much, Matt. Okay, we are moving on to the information calendar, right, EJ?
That is correct.
So information item is 9A, December meetings schedule. And I asked that we just have a quick discussion on this because December is going to be just a crazy month for us and staff and the holidays. So I'd just like to open this up real quick. If we can hopefully get some concurrence today as to our December calendar between committees and a board meeting. So I'll open up to my other colleagues. Any thoughts or concerns on this? And then I'm happy to talk too, but go ahead. Anybody else have any thoughts or concerns on this? And
President Houston, I would just add that staff did provide each of you with your calendar for the month of, I believe, November and December. And staff is on hand to answer any questions about the flexibility of different meetings. I know that at least one or two of them have already been rescheduled, the committee meetings, but we're happy to walk you through the month if needed.
okay,
I have a question on this December calendar.
yeah, go ahead, Director Deere.
I'm looking at the 20th and 21st. Are those meetings scheduled or not scheduled, taken off? And what happened to the 11th and 12th? Same committees. What's happening there?
The 20th and 21st meetings were rescheduled as they would be after the board meeting that month. So the finance and admin is now on the 11th, and public information and education would now be held on the 12th.
So the 20th and 21st are not going to be held? Okay.
Okay. Let me talk real quick because so we have a couple courts here, right? So Christmas is on a Monday. And the way our code works, normally the fourth Monday is when we would meet, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what is it our code says normally would happen, Desiree?
If the fourth Monday of the month is a district holiday, the regular board meeting will be held on the next business day, except for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, in which case the regular board meeting will be held on the third Monday in December.
Okay, so that'd be the 18th.
So that's why this is on for the 18th.
Yeah.
So, and then we have, just looking to see, oh, there it is, CRUA. CRUA happens the 13th, 14th, and 15th. And I know I'm planning to go to CRUA. So staff's already moved the finance and the public information ones ahead of the 18th, just by default. So they put those on the 11th and 12th, which I'm totally personally fine with. And of course, Director Williams and I are on those two. But CRUA, you've got water policy and ledge on the 13th, and you also have engineering operations on the 13th. So I don't know if anyone else is traveling or is not going to be here. That's going to impede that. And here's the other thing. I have a family function to go to the weekend of the 16th, 17th. I prefer not to do a board meeting on the 18th if the board is so gracious. I would love to ask if you want to push it to the 19th or 20th. That's one of the things I want to talk about. So go ahead, Director Alvarez.
I was going to suggest, because of CRUA, that we move the water policy and the E&O committee meeting to Monday, the 18th, and that the board meeting be held on Wednesday, the 20th, and then we don't start for the rest of the year, which is what is there anyways.
Okay. So I don't know if everyone heard that. The Director Alvarez said move water policy and ledge and also E&O from the 13th to the 18th.
Both of them?
Correct. And then move the board meeting from the 18th to the 20th, which is Wednesday. Which,
Or you can move it to Thursday, either or.
okay, although,
Just that we end up everything that week.
right, I agree with that, although I think Wednesday would be good, because that way staff can wrap up loose ends on the 21st, or they're gone for a 4-day weekend, it looks like. So, okay, I just want to get consensus that that's okay, and, well, let's do this. Director Alvarez and Williams are on E&O, so if you're okay to move that to the 18th, I mean, we can solve that right now. Does that work, Director Williams?
That would work for me.
You know? And at 4 o'clock?
Yeah.
No problem there, right?
No, we just want to make sure that you're aware. So first and foremost, this will require a board action because this would depart from our admin code. So our legal counsel, wherever he is, could walk us through, maybe we could agendize it. If we have consensus now, we could easily agendize that for next month. Then secondly, the only thing I wanted to point out, and this is just a technical issue, is that by moving the meeting from the 18th, which would be what our admin code states, to the 20th, it would then therefore become a special board meeting. Therefore, you would not be required to have 72 hours of published notice. So
Whatever the two committees decide to be put on, you can put on.
we would have ample time to do that.
So all the way around.
Monday to Wednesday on the board meeting.
Correct. Right. And that's a good point, EJ. And also, over the years, the board has moved board meetings on rare occasion. People were out of town and things like that, so it becomes a special meeting. Okay, one last question then. So water policy and ledge, moving it from the 13th at 1 o'clock to the 18th, I'm assuming 1 o'clock, is that's Director Gray and Director Deere, right? Are you two both okay with that right now? If we can get that.
Yeah, okay.
Director Gray? There?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm okay with that now. Thank you for asking.
Oh, okay. Great. So that frees up the 13th. Don't worry about it. And then you'd have two meetings on the 18th, and then you have our board meeting would be held on the 20th, right? Okay. So with that, I sound like we have consensus that that'll work. It gives staff some lead time on this. And then EJ, you said that we're going to have to take an official action on that.
Correct.
Calendar change.
And we'll have time to do that as well. We can bring that in November.
Does that work? Bring that to November board meeting? Very nice. All right. So thank you, colleagues, on all of that. I know we've changed a lot of committee meetings over the course of this year. And sometimes myself included, I'm like, can we just talk about it all in one swoop? The Brown Act makes things fun too, by the way. But anyway, all right. So thank you for that, everybody. Next is our receive and file, item 10, 1 through 12. I'll entertain a motion to receive and file. Director Alvarez moved it. Is there a second?
Second.
I heard Deere first as a second. Any discussion, receive and file? Hearing none. Please take a vote. EJ.
Director Don Deere,
Yes.
Director Gloria Gray,
Yes,
Director Harold Williams,
Yes.
Director Desi Alvarez,
Yes.
President Scott Houston.
Yes. Okay, next is General Manager's Activities Report.
Yes, Mr. President, I have provided all of the members of the Board of Directors that are here today with a written copy. So you should have a hard copy there in front of you. And then I've also emailed it to you all.
Thank you.
Any questions for the general manager? Let's see. Well, let me say something here. One is, I don't think we've gotten the photos yet from water harvest. I don't think, unless I missed it in our emails.
I know we have a link to them. I don't know if staff has had an opportunity to go through and sort them. I think they're in 3 folders, but we will get that out to you today.
Well, you know, even tomorrow's fine, but it's been over a week, so let's please at some point get that to the directors. I haven't seen any of the photos yet. And that's the other thing I just wanted to mention. I mean, I think this is the time to talk about it for one more. I think the water harvest went excellent. I know we talked about it at our committee, but not everyone's at committee. And I just want to say that thank you to the general manager and staff and just everybody's involved. I thought it went really excellent, and I want to take the opportunity to applaud you all, as well as I told you, I heard really good feedback, not just from some elected folks, but from just the average residents who came, and some of them for the first time. And they were really, really pleased. So just wanted to say that.
And Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
if I could just add to that, I was not able to attend the Public Information and Education Committee. Our manager of Water Policy and Legislation, Resources Development, actually chaired that meeting for us, or ran it from my perspective. I did want to say thank you very much to our public information team. They did an amazing job leading up to that event, during that event, and even after. And I think that the most important thing to really note was their coordination with all of the department managers and all of the department staff, because we had an enormous turnout of West Basin there in force. I saw that the event ran a little smoother. I noticed that people were far more relaxed. People were getting breaks when they needed breaks, and everybody just seemed to have a smile on their face. So I want to say thank you to everybody on that. And then there was something else I wanted to mention before we get to the adjournments too, is that we do have one member of West Basin staff that is leaving us in the near future. Mr. Wendell Johnson, our manager of engineering, is moving on to the city of San Fernando. And I do want to say thank you very much to him, all of the efforts that he's put in here at West Basin Municipal Water District. And I always tell people that the staff members in the industry are the lasting legacy of West Basin. There are West Basin alumnus everywhere, top to bottom, throughout the industry. And so it's a pleasure to have Mr. Johnson with us, but we're excited for his new opportunity, and we're excited to work with him in different capacities once he leaves and joins their team.
Very good. Thank you for pointing that out. We did get that note. And Wendell, thank you so much for your service here, let alone you're going to another net member agency, right? City of San Fernando. So thank you for your service here and congratulations on the new opportunity. Anybody else have anything?
Just to comment, you said someone chaired the meeting. The meeting was chaired by a board member.
That is correct. I apologize for that. The statement.
Oh, that's, yeah, I got you. Sure. Okay, last, I want to say, because I think this is also the time, I understand too, we've had what, 2 rain barrel events at this, has it just been 2?
No, we've had 3 over.
3. We just had the 3rd one, right? Yep, and we've got some more coming up. So from what I've heard, they've been great. You know, I know you'll get the full report at PI, but you know, we've got 3 more coming up. And I just want to thank everybody who's involved in that too. It's I know that's a lot of work as well. You know, so put it out there. We keep on getting the information out to the public on that. So I think that's about it for the general manager. Anybody else? Oh, Director Gray, you got something?
Yes, are we at comments or we just?
No, we're just at the general manager's report. But you know what? A lot of people leave by the time we get the comments. So, you know, we got to get something in people want to hear. Maybe that's the time to do it. But
Can I
do you have any?
do that now?
Yeah, go ahead, real quick. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say thank you to Wendell And congratulations on your retirement or your other phase in life. Thank you for your service and your value to West Basin. I really do appreciate you being there, but congratulations on your leaving. But thank you for what you've done there. The other thing I want to mention, Water Harvest, I think I mentioned it in committee. I wasn't able to attend. I think it's probably the first time or second time in the time I've been on the board. It's always been an amazing event, and I've heard comments from you guys, and I know it was more amazing this time. Each time it gets better. So congratulations to Amy and her staff and everybody involved. I won't call names. To everyone, Gus and everybody involved. And Mr. President, you just mentioned the rain barrel. There's a lot of work. And so Gus and whomever else involved always do a great work. I just appreciate that, all their work. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Gray. And thank you, Mr. General Manager, for everything that you accomplished with your staff. Okay, so General Counsel's report.
Yeah, other than closed session, I don't have anything for open session.
Very good, thank you. Item 13, AB 1234, reporting compliant. Does anyone have anything to report at this time? Okay, I know most, if you have something, you put it in writing, and I'll just mention AB 1234 for me, since our last board meeting was October 1 through 5, I attended the WEFTEC conference in Chicago, which was excellent, number one. And number two, I'm really happy to see a lot more folks attended this year, because last year was kind of the comeback and it wasn't as well attended. But this year, it was almost back to normal, and everyone was saying the same thing. It was almost overwhelming, but it was a great conference. I do value the opportunity to do it, and Mr. General Manager, I think that we should always look at opportunities as appropriate to, try to have our staff be involved in a panel discussion or showcase a project. And certainly those who are appropriate get that opportunity to attend, WEFTEC as well as others. I think I was the only West Basin person this cycle. Really happy to be there, but it's a really great conference. And yes, by the way, I did see a lot of our Californians are there. A lot of our vendors are there too, that we work with on a regular basis. So it was good to see them, and it's important we have presence. All right, so with that, we are now moving into closed session. So, Mr. Legal Counsel, if you would read us that item.
Yeah, we will go into closed session for the item stated on the agenda, which is conference legal counsel anticipated litigation or case.
Very good, thank you. We're in closed.
That's good. It comes all the way up, right? Right. It comes all the way up on you, right? You see your glasses? Mm-hmm. Okay. Give me a little
Are we good, Desiree? Okay, welcome back. We're out of closed session, and so we're in open session, and if our legal counsel could please report out.
I'll report that the board did not take any action in closed session.
Very good, thank you, Joe. Let's see, so we are at director's comments and future agenda items. If anyone has any comments or future agenda items, now's the time. If you're here.
Nope.
Williams.
No,
Director Alvarez stepped away. Director Gray, I don't believe is with us at this time. So I don't have anything additional to say except for rain barrels are coming up. Water harvest was excellent. All those good things. And then I wanted to note some in memoriam, adjournments, because we've had a number of people sadly who passed away from our region recently. So I'll begin, of course, since our last board meeting, Senator Dianne Feinstein passed away. Obviously, she was 90 years old, and she was the longest serving woman senator in United States history. So that's amazing, as well as California's longest serving senator. And she was also the first woman elected mayor of San Francisco. So I think everybody knows her record in being a trailblazer, but also how much, and how much we personally, I think, supported her in the sense of being a champion for water in the West, and being pretty nonpartisan about it. So I think it's a huge loss to our state. And so I'm really glad that we were able to work with her and her staff all these years, and were able to honor her a couple of times as a legislator of the year award as well from this agency. Then there's Cindy Montañez, who passed away this weekend. I believe it was from a form of cancer. Sadly, she was only 49 years old. She served on the City Council of San Fernando 2 times. She was first elected as the youngest elected council member in San Fernando at the age of 25. So that was her first claim to fame, but then also she was the youngest woman elected to the California State Assembly, and she was only 28. And then later, she actually worked for the LAUP. Most of us knew her, of course, as the CEO of Tree People. And of course, and I got to know her a lot over the years too. She was just very, very active in our region and in politics. There was a lady named Donna Sarr, and I'll get you all these spellings, Desiree. So Donna Sarr from the city of West Hollywood. She was a former deputy to a former city council member, Sal Gariello. And she was also a public facilities commissioner. I think she was also a public safety commissioner, and just a staunch advocate of the city of West Hollywood since its formation back in 1984. And even to me was a good friend. So I really appreciated her. It was sad to hear of her passing. I don't know her age at this moment. And then we just learned over the weekend that Ray Waters of Hermosa Beach passed away. He was 88 years old. He was a retired teacher from LAUSD, and he also served on the Hermosa Beach Board of Education for a time. And he was the former president of the Beach Cities Democratic Club for quite some time, as well as he was a longtime Assembly District Representative to the LA County Democratic Party. And through that, he was a delegate to the California Democratic Party. So most of us knew Ray Waters through a myriad of activism and club organizations, and also just being a really great public servant and resident of Hermosa Beach. So I was really sad to hear that he had passed away. That was a surprise to me, for Ray Waters. And then Director Williams has also brought to our attention that Jimmy Leroy Broussard, a longtime resident of the city of Carson, has passed away.
I presented him with the memoriam certificate at his funeral, not him, but his family, at the funeral this past Saturday.
So just like to take a moment to adjourn in the honor of all of these great people, I think people who made a big difference in our region, our state, and each of us on a personal level as well. So with that, you're adjourned.